Well, good afternoon, and thank you for the privilege of standing up here and being even considered for this position, and especially to follow in the footsteps, possibly, of a dear friend and a mentor in our President Larry Stotterill. And I also want to say blessings to my two brothers, to Tim and Vince. They are great pastors and great godly leaders, and I do really think that our district is in a phenomenal moment right now to have this kind of unity and commitment and partnership together in what we do. Now, I'm hoping that you read the vision statement that's in your workbook, because I'm not going to repeat it. I want to share with you instead this afternoon about some of the things that fire in me, the things that drive me, the things that form foundational realities with who I am, because these are the kinds of things that will drive me should I be in this role. The first thing that I want you to know is that I believe that it takes all kinds of churches to reach all kinds of people. We are each engaged in ministries where we are proclaiming the gospel and administering the sacraments and doing it in unique contexts and communities, where we are living out as congregations our passions, our preferences, our ministry emphases, and our mission. Now, one of the things that has shaped me over the years is many, many years of mission travel and study and experiences. So much of it that I have learned about the global south and what God is doing in Asia and Latin America and Africa. And I'm convinced that there are many things that we can be learning here in the Church of the Global North that would make a difference for us in who we are and what we do in ministry in our congregations. And I'd like to share one of those things with you. And the thing that I want to share with you is this, that in the growing churches and the Lutheran churches around the world, to simplify it, there are two things that really set them apart. Number one, there is their unity. Now, it's unity absolutely in our doctrine and how we proclaim the gospel and how God works through the sacraments. But it also includes the unity with a radical commitment to the mission that God has called us to, the Great Commission of our Savior Jesus Christ. Secondly, there is a diversity in practice that's not just tolerated, but that is celebrated. To see that there are ways that we are bringing the things that are our non-negotiables of the substance of what it is we believe, and where we are applying it in this term, in these places, in your communities, in ways that make a difference for the gospel. Unity and diversity. Now, in this paradox of unity and diversity, it doesn't mean that there aren't differences in opinions. But what it means is that there's an even greater commitment to the mission than the things that divide them. And because of that, they are able to push forward with all that they are to help the gospel of Christ transform the lives of people. And I believe that it is important that we in the Pacific Southwest District are committed to this for our future. And that is that we will celebrate and empower the uniquenesses that God has created in our schools and our churches, because it takes all kinds of churches to reach all kinds of people. Secondly, I'm convinced that we do our best work of ministry when we keep three words in their right sequence. And those three words are Christology, missiology, and ecclesiology. Let me define them briefly. Christology is what God has done. It is the saving work of God through our Savior Jesus Christ. It is the work and the message of the church as it proclaims the gospel and administers the sacrament. It is our first work. Missiology is what God has called us to do into the world. It is what God has called us to do so that people would know Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, and that it would drive us to see that the fulfillment of the Great Commission is the thing that becomes the number one thing we direct that gospel and those sacraments into the world for those outcomes. Ecclesiology is who we are. We are the church, called out by God to stand for Him in our world today. And as the church, it is our job to partner together to do the things that we can't do by ourselves, and then to organize enough so that we can do the work, like our district mission statement says, to effectively resource congregations and schools for transforming lives and for making the Great Commission real. Christology, missiology, and ecclesiology. And when we get them mixed up, we struggle. When we put ecclesiology ahead of missiology, we turn inward and we find disagreement with one another. It's time to make sure that we are putting them and keeping them in the right order. The third thing I want to share with you is a very personal passion. I love the church. I love the whole church, with all of its warts and all of its blessings, honest. And I love watching the people of God do the work of God in the pursuit of the mission of God. I love celebrating the ministry of the baptized and seeing people who are called into their vocations of ministry, regardless of what they do in their lives or their careers. I love watching people come to know Jesus and get adopted into His eternal family through the waters of baptism, and watching disciples turn into disciple makers, and seeing children in our schools come to know Jesus, to love Jesus, and to follow Him for their entire lives. And I'm grateful for the men and women, the lay people of our congregations, without whom so much of the work of the church would never get done. And for the last 34 years, it has been my privilege to work with some of the finest, godly men and women that serve within His church. And I am driven to support, empower, love, celebrate those who have given themselves to the Lord and to His church in service. The pastors, the educators, the DCEs, the worship directors, the administrators, licensed deacons, the staff that supports us, and all the others in between. And I'm also so grateful for the spouses and the families of church workers who serve us and love us, and yet often do it at home alone. And for pastors' wives. Sometimes I think the one member of the church who really doesn't have a pastor of their own. And I have been blessed and privileged for 39 years to share this journey with Kathy. So those are a few things that drive me, things that I want you to know that are the things that burn inside of me, that I know would shape me as to how God would have me to serve in this way if this is what His will and direction would be. And I'm humbled every day that He would use a sinful, forgiven guy like me just the way He uses you. And I'm absolutely amazed every morning that I get to wake up and I get to do what I get to do. And if it's God's will, I look forward to the opportunity of doing it with you. The churches and the schools and the ministries of the Pacific Southwest District. Please know that you are in my prayers in these moments and days, and I thank you for the privilege of sharing and being considered for what God might want to do in our midst. Thank you.